Hello, I'm Dylan.
And I'm Keon.
And this is Josh the Doctor, that podcast where we retcon ourselves, because this week we watched Face the Raven.
Written by Sarah Dollard.
Directed by Justin Molotnikov.
And aired on November 21st, 2015.
You look like you forgot for a second
No. I was just thrown off by the director's name.
Justin Molotnikov has done episodes before.
I didn't know he did this one. Now I do.
He did Sleep No More. He literally did last week's episode for us.
Mm-hmm.
Production-wise, was last week's episode done first? I think it was.
Classic Trust Your Doctor segment of just figuring these things out on recording.
I think it was. I'm pretty sure it was. Anyway.
Yeah, so Face the Raven.
Yeah, Face the Raven.
I really liked this one.
Yeah, I like this one a lot, too.
It's a really good episode.
With that surprise return of me.
And the surprise return of Riggsy.
Riggsy wasn't a surprise.
The death of Clara.
Riggsy was in the preview for last week. I made coy references to the female voice in last week's Next Time trailer that you didn't recognize at all, but it was me. Not me. Not me. Oh, God.
It was a shoulder.
Oh, God.
It was Mayor Me.
Oh, yeah, her name's Mayor Me now. It almost sounds like Mini-Me, but...
No.
Wonder if that's what Moffat was going for. The shoulder's like Mini-Me of the Doctor. On to you, Moffat. Come on to you.
Well, the Doctor does die in this episode.
The Doctor will never die.
But remember, the 12th Doctor isn't the Doctor.
What?
Clara is.
That was just a ruse within a ruse within a ruse. That ruse was like 3 layers deep.
It's a 7-layer dip.
I was trying to find a way to make that same joke.
Anyway, this episode starts with, a familiar face. Riggsy.
It actually starts with Clara and the Doctor running into the TARDIS and Clara being like, I totally saved you. And the Doctor's like, no, you didn't. She's like, yeah, I did. If I hadn't done X, Y, and Z sci-fi techno babble, then you'd be dead. And the Doctor's like, yeah, but now we can never go back. And then Riggsy calls Clara.
And it turns out Riggsy has a sick new tattoo.
Yeah, and according to your summary, a sick new baby as well. Yeah. I definitely read through your summary.
So they go and visit Riggsy. He really is Craig 2.0, in his second appearance, now just has a child. It's true.
But we met Craig's wife. We didn't meet Riggsy's wife / girlfriend / significant other.
We get her name drop, though. It's Jen, and we get a one-sided conversation with her on the phone.
Yeah, we can kind of hear her voice through the phone, too. She's saying something like, she's crying. Riggsy's like, yeah, she's crying because you're scared.
But it sort of comes off as just like the adult voice from Peanuts, like, wah, 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 wah. No. No, but Riggsy has this tattoo on his neck. It's a countdown.
Well, so Riggsy calls Clara and tells her he's got a tattoo, and she's like, we can't just go back in time and change your tattoo because you're having like regrets now. And Riggsy's like, but I didn't get a tattoo. I'm like, okay, doesn't change anything. Maybe you were blackout drunk. Then Riggsy's like, it's literally counting down. Then Clara's like, I see. That's probably weird.
Yeah, so they investigate.
Well, the Doctor kind of looks at it and he's like, yeah, it looks pretty unremarkable, but I love this baby. This new human, I think he calls it. He calls Riggsy local knowledge. Again. Still.
Once they figure out that the tattoo is counting down, they sort of become more interested, I guess, or the Doctor does at least.
Yeah, so they go into the TARDIS.
Sorry, Peter Capaldi's character, I forgot.
The Doctor.
Jenna Coleman plays the Doctor in this episode.
You wish. You wish.
I do wish Jenna Coleman would play the Doctor. She's a really good actor.
Actress?
Sure. Yeah. If you want to go the diminutive route there, baked into the English language, why not?
We were given these words. we merely inherited the English language. We didn't define it.
It's true. So I forget how they decide to do this, but they're looking for a trap street.
The doctor comes up with this ingenious thing. Well, okay, first the doctor like calls Rigsy, and Rigsy's like, "Look, call me whatever you want, but don't call me Rigsy. That's like a bad sign," because the doctor's flipping through the cards Clara made him. He's like, "There's no nice way to say that you're gonna die," and Rigsy's like, "Whoa, wait, what? I'm gonna die?" The doctor's like, "Yep, and also you've been retconned and pumped full of mind-altering drugs."
Yeah, because Rigsy doesn't remember the last 24 hours.
Yeah.
Ish.
But the doctor's like, "Oh, that's weird." And he's like, "You probably encountered some weird pocket of alien life, like in London." He's like, I've always heard it postulated, but I've never bothered to check it out because it's been too uninteresting for me." And I'm like, "Really, doctor?" But apparently he postulates that there are streets in London that don't appear on any maps and contain alien life.
Yeah, sort of have a perception filter-like thing around them. There's another word they use in this episode. I don't remember what it was.
Misdirection filter, I think it is.
Powered by worms. But yeah, so there are these...
Leech punk.
Yeah. Finally, Doctor Who does a leech punk story. Can't believe
that phrase we coined on.
We've come this far. Even more proof that we created Doctor Who. So they sort of hover over London in the TARDIS.
Yeah, because they look through all these maps and Clara busts out some more useless Trivial Pursuit knowledge, where she's like, "Yeah, all these trap streets, like map makers would put them on maps, and then if that showed up in another person's map, they knew they just copied them instead of making their own map." And I'm like, okay, but once you release a map into the public, like, you can't really control where it goes. But anyway, the doctor's like, classic humans, you see a street that disappears on a map and you imagine it has to be a trap. Clara's like, well, yeah, what would the other explanation be? And the doctor's like, aliens. Literally aliens.
So from an aerial view, any place your eye just skims over that you can't really concentrate on is bound to have some of these alien, life forms.
Well, so they, instead of just using like the logical thing, which is like Google Maps, they decide to get an updated map of London by scanning it with Clara's eyeballs because they want to compare it to the old maps they got from the Library of London.
She probably just wanted to do that. She looked like she was having way too much fun, as Rigsy mentions.
Yeah, that's one of my quotes that I wrote down for later on.
Yeah. So they find a couple areas, and then they go back down to, ground level and investigate.
The doctor tells them that they gotta count their steps, because wherever they lose count, that might be a misdirection filter. I'm like, okay, but I lose count. If I'm trying to track something for like completely benign things, like if my phone goes off, I'm like, shoot, lost count. Notice my shoelace is untied. Shoot, lost count. Doesn't necessarily have to be aliens. But, again, I'm just going with it, Doctor. You know what? Let's just go with it.
And they do go with it, and they do eventually find an alien hideout, essentially.
Well, so they don't see it yet.
Rigsy does. Rigsy kind of has a flashback. He's starting to remember the events of the past day.
Because Clara goes to get his phone from the TARDIS that they've been repairing because it was broken, so they couldn't see where he had gone on his phone because it was broken, but it just finished repairing because Clara was going to get distracting things from the TARDIS to distract them. So, because the idea about the misdirection filter is that you can only see it when you're like not paying attention to it, kind of thing.
Yeah, the doctor has a great line here. I can't believe I didn't write this down for my quotes, but he says something like, "Go get all my most annoying stuff out of the TARDIS."
Yeah. And Clara brings the phone back, and Rigsy accidentally drops it, and that's when he has the flashback, because that's the same thing he did yesterday. He saw a dead body, and he dropped the phone. And then Clara starts to see it as well, because she gets distracted by Rigsy, and I guess the doctor's just, like, always out of it, so he just, like, sees it immediately.
Yeah. So they go into this alley, but there are a couple of things that I kind of wanted to touch on here.
Yeah.
And nothing too major. But, gotta hand it to Rigsy. I forget the name of the actor who plays him. It's Joyven something or the other.
Yeah,
Joyven Wade,
Joyven
or
Wade, I
however you
think it
pronounce his
is.
first name. Really got to hand it to him for bringing back some of the exaggerated motions from the classic series. You know, in the classic show, whenever the TARDIS was like crashing or just hurtling into who knows where, the characters would always grip like the just anything nearby and just make the most exaggerated, unnatural motions in the world. And Riggsy does that here.
Well, that's because they hadn't hooked up the TARDIS console with all the pyrotechnics they did in the reboot. So from a production standpoint, the crashing TARDIS was like some guy shaking the camera. Shaking the camera while the actors like run around.
Yeah, it wasn't even so much shaking the camera. It was just like imagine gripping onto something and just kind of like moving your shoulders around a little bit. That's pretty much what it was.
Yeah, it's like, have you ever seen that video of like the Enterprise crashing in the original series of Star Trek, but they stabilize the footage so they remove all the camera shake? Just people like intentionally just falling downstairs, and it just looks completely comical. It's like that.
But Riggsy bringing it back. Gotta hand it to him. This is the scene where they're, flying above London, by the way. And speaking of London, this is not London at all. Now that I've actually been to Cardiff, I'm just noticing all the little places where they're like, yep, we're in London. This is London. I'm like, no, that is a very distinct location in Cardiff.
Yeah, well, it's cheaper to go film down the road than it is to like bus your crew over to London.
Yeah, I regret going to Cardiff last time I was in the UK, because now I'm just noticing every little bit of the show is actually in Cardiff when they say it's London.
Probably shouldn't go to Toronto then. Every movie you've ever watched.
I've been to Toronto too, actually.
That's like in the first Transformers movie, there's a scene where Optimus Prime first lands and he sees a truck drive by on the freeway and then he turns into the truck. That like, every time you drive north to LA, you drive past that exact spot on the freeway. It's right there by the Porsche Experience.
Oh, God.
And I recognize it every time, like, hey, that's the spot where Optimus Prime came down in the first Michael Bay Transformers movie.
Nice.
Anyway, I had a couple things I wanted to talk about here. Just the stuff I'm surprised Keon's not talking about, and some of the meta-narrative stuff going on here with the drug that Riggsy's been giving being called Retcon. The name of the drug is literally Retcon, which, if for some reason you don't know, that stands for retroactive continuity. And also the idea of the misdirection filter rather than the perception filter. Because I guess there's some subtle differences. But I really like the idea of the misdirection filter because it introduces this idea that into this episode, which I think they kind of play with, especially with the Raven later on, in that you never really know that what you're looking at is real, so to speak, and that you don't really know what's going on, kind of thing. So when you walk past a trap street, you don't realize it's a street, but then you go into the street, but even within the street, you still don't know that what you're seeing is real because all the aliens in the street have their own misdirection filter, so they all look like humans wandering around the street.
Right.
And then like the Raven is actually, it's not a Raven, it's a quantum shade, I think the doctor calls it. So, and that doesn't even have a perception filter on. That just looks like a Raven for whatever reason. Although I wanted to talk a little bit about the differences between ravens and crows.
Oh boy.
I don't want to go too in depth here because visually it looks pretty much like a raven. They have a little bit higher brow and their tail's a little more wedge shaped. But the thing I wanted to talk about was how the noise the raven is making sounds more like a crow than a raven. So even within that, you're kind of left wondering, like, is it really a raven? I don't think anyone in the episode actually even calls it a raven. I think that's like pretty much strictly restricted to the title.
They say face the raven, or like you'll face the raven. They say the name of the
But beyond that, I don't think anyone calls it a raven, but you're still left wondering, like when you listen to it cawing down the alleyway, it sounds a lot more like a crow than a raven. You're still like wondering.
It's Dementor.
I mean, I don't know. I think it's an interesting kind of meta thing going on here. Like even you as the audience, like, is it really Like, is it really a raven, or are we meant to, like, question this as well? I don't know. Kind of ties in with last week, too, with Sleep No More, where you kind of left questioning, like, how much of this you're actually supposed to believe and how much of it is just, like, fiction.
Yeah, a lot of interesting stuff going on there, I guess.
Misdirection. And mystery.
Speaking of mysteries, something that's been a mystery to me for a while, and this is going to be an odd request I'm going to make, so just brace yourselves. But a while ago, I watched this Brazilian TV show that was about this favela, which a favela is, I believe, like a Brazilian slum, and it's about these two kids who get involved with this gang, and the gang commissions them to make a map of the favela because it's unmapped. Or like they're looking at a map of the city and it's like just this unmarked hill, and they're like, what the hell? Like, we live here. Like, this is an entire like slum on this hill and it's not on the map. So they commissioned these two kids to make this map, and all the actors in it were actually people from the favela. So like the acting really sucked, and like the cinematography was like actually awful. But like the show was awesome. Like, I only watched an episode, but like it was freaking cool, and I wanted to watch more. And I was like, I'm definitely gonna remember the name of this show so I can watch more. And lo and behold, I forgot the name. So if you know what I'm talking about, just hit me up. Tell me what the show's called, because I want to watch more.
There are entire subreddits dedicated to this kind of thing.
I don't even use Reddit, though.
I do, though. There's like enough information in your request that some random anonymous guy on Reddit has the obscure knowledge you require.
Look, I'm really confident in my Googling skills. I'm pretty much a better Googler than most people, but I'm unable to find this show.
So that's why you're inquiring for people who might have obscure knowledge of this show.
Yes. So if you know what this Brazilian map show is called, let me know.
Was it a Brazilian made?
Yeah,
show?
Yeah, it was Brazilian made.
Oh, well, no wonder it's obscure.
Yeah.
Speaking of Brazil, the Amazon rainforest has been on fire for 3 weeks.
Yeah, I heard about that.
And we're like dangerously close to the tipping point with, I think it was like if 20% of the Amazon rainforest, estimates vary, but between 20 and 50% of the Amazon rainforest just burned or was chopped down, then it would
we're all gonna die.
It would, basically. It would like irreparably damage the Earth's ecosystem, and we're like right almost on the cusp of 20% with these fires.
Hell yeah.
So if you want to know how close we are to being like totally boned ecologically, pretty close. Pretty close. You know what's the worst part is the farmers are burning down the forest for more farmland, but once you hit that 20% mark, like rainwater will just drastically decrease and it'll basically become impossible to farm there. So congrats, you played yourself.
Just another step closer to the inevitable apocalyptic hell world that we're hurtling towards.
I'm just imagining in 50 years when we're living in a nuclear wasteland, you know, when you play Fallout, there's always those radio stations in-game that play music, and that's going to be us. We're going to just have this, like, wasteland radio station. Trust your wasteland.
2.0 nuclear Fallout version.
Tune in to 100.1 or something.
It really will be if we end the podcast, we die. Because if we leave our bunker, we die.
Bringing new meaning. Oh, man. Oh, so anyway, back to the story at hand. They're in the trap street, and it's revealed that, surprise, Mayor Me is in charge. And Clara's like, hey, I've met you. The doctor's like, me? And Clara's like, Ashilda. The doctor's like, you haven't been caught up on all the latest info.
The latest 500-year-old info. Her name's Me now.
And he's like, I really liked our conversations, Clara. I've read them multiple times in my diary. And Clara's like, wait, what? And I'm like, oh yeah, Clara wasn't in that episode.
No. She noped out of that one.
Although she was at the end that delivered the selfie that had me in the background.
Yeah.
Which we were like, man, if I didn't know better, I'd say me is the antagonist.
Whoa.
She kind of was in this episode. Although at the end she's like, I didn't mean for anyone to get hurt. And you kind of believe her, actually.
No, I mean, I totally believe her. It seems she's lost some brain power over the years. Or maybe not, no, I don't know.
Maybe. She's lived for like 1,000 years at this point.
I guess she's just trying to keep the peace on the street.
4,000 years, I guess.
which we can get into what the street is now. So, which because we're kind of introduced to it here, it's essentially an alien refugee area
Yeah.
that Mi is running because, and I think she gives this example of like you really want to like live with the humans out there like the Zygons do. Like, look what happened with that.
Yeah, she directly mentions the Zygons.
But can't she just let Zygons be Zygons?
World's first brutal murder on audio captured right now. Well, so I wrote down all the alien species I saw because every so often the misdirection filters kind of flicker. Rigsy sees through a couple of them, and the Doctor sees through a couple of them later. We see Jadoon with the helmet on because I guess they didn't want to recreate that rhino head. Sontaran. I saw what looked like a Sycorax, but I wasn't entirely sure. And then an Ood and a Cyberman.
Yeah,
That's what I got.
An Ood like operating on a Cyberman or something. I don't really know what that was supposed to be.
Yeah, so
or
my
like
question:
giving him a shave or something. I don't know.
does Mi just like exclude Zygons from her street? Wouldn't that make her like just as bad as the people that these aliens are running away from? No Zygons allowed.
Does she say like no Zygons or like?
No, I'm just like questioning. Like, does she just disallow Zygons or?
I'm sure if a Zygon showed up, she'd like welcome them. Well, I'm not sure about that actually. But
the way she talks about the Zygons living with the humans like makes me question that a lot.
The Zygons already decided though that they're gonna live amongst the humans or whatever.
Yeah, and it's working out like way better for them than these people on this like street. Anyway, well, it was working out way better for them until Bonnie showed up. Was like, I'm gonna just mess up the Zygon Treaty. Anyway, enough of that.
We get sort of what happened to Rigsy, because Mi explains it, and he's also starting to remember that so Rigsy's been accused of murder. The evidence is highly circumstantial,
as is tradition on this show. But the Doctor's like, look, we've still got. I think I've got like 120 minutes or something.
No, at this point it's like 45. They waste a lot of time with the maps and stuff.
But when they go into the street, I thought he mentioned it was at like 130.
Maybe.
But I might be wrong.
After they sort of break up, after they sort of split from A. Schilder and start doing their own little investigation, it's at like 40 or 30 or something like that.
Yeah, so
I was like, they wasted a ton of time.
Maybe she just takes 20 minutes to explain everything. But yeah, so the Doctor's like, well, we've still got 20 minutes, so we can prove that he didn't do it, basically. And then as they're about to leave, we see somebody else who's been sentenced to death come running up and plead for a Schilder to remove the chronolock, yeah. She's like, nope, our laws are sacred here. And I'm like, God, because he just stole, this guy was the Cyberman. He stole some medical rations for his wife, who was dying, apparently. Like, wow, real Aladdin situation going on here.
Yeah, so Mia's like, yeah, I can remove the chronolock, but I'm not going to.
Won't.
So the guy has to face the Raven,
right.
And that happens. And no, we'll explain what this is. So the quantum shade, when the timer hits 0, sort of just charges at you and becomes one with you, and then kills you and flies out of your body as smoke.
I don't know. It kills you somehow. It flies into you.
Yeah.
Mulches your internal organs. And then leaves.
This is sort of like the Dementors from Harry Potter, what little I know of them. I don't know too much about Harry Potter, but this whole episode kind of gave me the Harry Potter vibe with like the Diagon Alley type thing they have in that
diagonally?
Series. Yeah, that.
What about Nocturne Alley? Nocturnally? Bravo, JK. Bravo.
The Shakespeare of the modern era.
Maybe in Public Impact.
Yeah, actually, probably, Well, no, I'll take that back. Close, maybe.
I wouldn't know.
No, there's no Shakespeare of the modern era. Shakespeare is not like a title that's passed on.
Neil Gaiman, the Shakespeare of the modern era.
No.
Stephen Moffat, the Shakespeare of the modern era. You heard it here first. Peter Capaldi, the Shakespeare of the modern era. But anyway, before the guy dies, he his wife pleads with him to give it to her, and he's like, no, I did this to save you. Why would I do that? And then Clara asks this tall guy
Yeah, it was
what he
Rump.
meant. Oh, great. You remembered his name.
Yeah. We had
And
Rump and we had Cable or something.
Cable.
Yeah, the other guy was Cable.
The Marvel Comics character Cable, who weirdly enough travels back from the future. So, and he explains that you can give the chronolock to someone else. You can give the
As long as they're willing to take it from
yeah.
you.
and as long as you're willing to give it away, basically.
So-
Which
so-
why wouldn't you be?
Well, when Clara
Unless it's someone
confronts
you care
Rigsy, when Clara confronts Rigsy, he's not willing to give it up at first, but then she kind of coerces him, honestly, in a way, into giving it up. And she doesn't mention the whole fact that, it can't be undone,
I don't think she realizes at this point. I think she's just being brash.
I guess.
I don't think because later on it kind of seems like she actually processes what Rump, I guess his name is, says, and she's like, I messed up.
Yeah.
But yeah, she's like, I'm just doing Doctor 101.
102.
Well, she did. Doctor 101 is never tell anyone your full plan.
Yeah, that was 102.
Damn it. 101 was what was 101?
There was no 101.
There was a
in
101.
this.
He said a 101. She said a 101, and then Riggsy's like, but won't the doctor get mad? And then she's like, oh, but 102 is never tell. No, 101 was never tell your full plan. 102.
No, I wrote that one down as a
102
quote.
was never tell the doctor.
Maybe. I'm pretty sure. I thought, I don't know. I wrote it down right after it happened, and I had Doctor 102 never tell anyone your actual plan.
Sure, it was Doctor 101, and 102 was like, don't tell the doctor or something. Well,
No.
whatever it was, part of it was don't tell anyone your plan. So that's what she's doing.
Meanwhile, Anna, the woman who died,
Is dead.
totally
dead.
Well, her daughter,
Well,
who you think is her son at this point, is kind of snooping around, spying on.
Yeah,
or not
what-
spying, but just kind of looking on.
Well, Clara's like, we saw her daughter, and the doctor's like, that would have been useful because her daughter could have seen what had happened and could prove that Rigsy didn't kill her because that species, the females of that species, whatever they were, I don't remember.
Me neither. They can see the past and the future.
Yeah, they have one head that looks into the future and one that looks into the past, which must suck, but anyway.
But the since it's her son, supposedly at this point, he doesn't have that ability. So they kind of don't do anything with that for now.
Well, the doctor goes around questioning some people, and then they meet up with the son, and it's revealed to actually be a daughter.
Yeah.
So she can actually see the past and the future, and she says that she can't. She knows that Rigsy didn't kill her mom, but she can't figure out what's going on because Rigsy's future and Ashilda's and the doctor's are all intertwined, and there's so much of the doctor's future still to come that she basically can't untangle it. And also the doctor's future is entangled with his past, and it's apparently impossible for her to see through. So, thanks, Doc.
But what they do learn from all this is that me knew about this all along.
Yeah, although the
She knew Rigsy knew the doctor, and that's how they kind of confront her and why they get suspicious in the first place.
Yeah, but the doctor, the way he kind of starts to figure out that Ashilda's in on it is when he's talking with someone and they're like, yeah, Rigsy asked Ashilda to call for a doctor, and he's like, but that doesn't make any sense because, like, why would you call for a doctor in here? And the doctor's like, wait, did he call for a doctor or the doctor? And he's like, oh, he called for the doctor.
But don't believe his human lies.
And the doctor's like, oh, and then that's how he realizes that Ashilda figured out that Rigsy knows the doctor and then pinned the murder on him afterwards.
Yeah, so they go back to where Anna is being held in the stasis cage thing.
Yeah, because she's being transported to be buried, but the doctor's like, that doesn't make any sense either because this species burns their dead.
And it turns
Throw
out
back
that
to dark water.
and it turns out that she's still alive.
Well, that's convenient.
But
It requires a
Ashilder-
key.
Yeah, Ashilder has rigged the device to where if you unlock the device and free Anna, it just straps a a Blake 7 teleport bracelet on your on
Yeah, it
your
also
wrist.
requires a key, but the doctor's like, it's not going to require a Shield's key. She wants this key, and he pulls out the TARDIS key. But don't forget, there's like 7 more of them. So
Well, Clara, oh, was that just a
that
dream?
was a
I don't
dream.
remember.
That was just a dream. Just in Clara's highly suggestible state. Man, Moffat really likes his highly suggestible dream states throughout the Moffat, the Capaldi era, doesn't he? We had the dream crabs, we had the sleep patches, we got the misdirection filter. Come on, Moffat.
Yet we can't sleep. We can't even close our eyes. We can't blink. We can't. What were some of the other ones? We can't.
Oh yeah, that was
we
the one
can't
from
think.
Logic. Don't sleep.
Yeah, don't
whatever.
sleep. Don't blink. Don't think. Don't. I don't know. There were a ton.
What can we do, Moffat?
So the one question I want answered by the end
I
of all
think we can
this.
still eat. As of right now.
All right. Well, we have to do so with our eyes closed, awake and asleep at the same time somehow. Looking at the food and not looking at the
Yeah,
food.
well, I
at
guess
the same time.
last week would technically be like a do sleep because the don't sleeping created the sleep monster. So it's like a do sleep, but then it's like don't blink because then the angels will get you. So like do sleep but don't blink. Moffat, what are you doing, man?
What do you want us to do?
Moffat.
Just tell us what you want us to do.
But the doctor puts his TARDIS key in because in a remarkable act of self-sacrifice, he's like, look, this kid needs her mom. He just gives up his key. I guess because he figures that there's got to be a way out of this somewhere down the line. If Clara hadn't totally mucked it all up.
Yeah.
Because then Me's like, well, I guess I got you. Come here, Riggsy, I'll take that chronolock off you. And Riggsy's like,
And they reveal that they transferred it over to Clara. And me and the doctor are like, how could you?
Because Clara wants me to let go of the doctor, release the teleport bracelet, and me's like, oh my god, I didn't know she would be so stupid. Doctor, you gotta believe me, I didn't know this was gonna happen. And the doctor's like, and the doctor's like, Clara, you goddamn fool. And Clara's like, why? What's wrong? You just take it off. And me's like, actually, no. I made a contract with the Quantum Shade for Riggsy's life, and only I'm allowed to break that contract. But since you took the chronolock from Riggsy, you cut me out of the deal now, so I can't break it.
Yeah, so Clara's gonna die.
I'm a little bit skeptical about how this whole chronolock thing works, but again, just gonna go with it.
I mean, the Quantum Shade controls it. Probably just can decide anything
Makes
on
its
a
own
whim.
rules.
So the doctor gets really mad here. I really like this scene. The doctor mentions that he's more or less going to take revenge against Ashilder and basically everyone involved. Clara tells him, like, no, you can't do this. Like, I'm going to die, and I'm going to face this. I'm going to face the Raven. But I don't want my last, memory of you to be this vindictive guy.
She also doesn't want him to remember her by being vindictive. He also says a line that I wrote down here that I really liked. He says, I should have taken care of you. And then Clara's like, I didn't ask you to. And he said, you shouldn't have had to ask. Which I just liked.
Yeah. There's even more, the idea that Clara is more doctor-like than the doctor is driven home even more here because the doctor gives up his title of doctor.
Well, the doctor's... Clara's like, I'm just being like you, I'm just being like you. And the doctor's like, yeah, but I'm less breakable than you, Clara. That's what you don't seem to get. Like, I can regenerate. I don't die, basically. But you, Clara, you're going to die. And she's like, well, maybe I want to die. Maybe ever since Danny Pink died. And I'm like, let her go, Moffat. Ever since Danny Pink died, maybe I wanted to die.
Well, I was making mention of the line where the doctor says, I think this is actually after Clara's death even, or maybe it's before, I honestly don't remember. The doctor says, I used to be the doctor, but the doctor is no longer here.
Yeah, he says... It's actually like a really badass line because Me's like, you can't hurt me. You're the doctor.
Yeah.
And he's like, the doctor isn't here anymore. You're stuck in here with me. And Me's like, shoot.
But I'm me.
But I'm me. And you're not me. The doctor's like, this is getting way too confusing. Pick a new name.
Anyway, Clara runs out and faces
dies.
the Raven.
She dies.
Yeah, she dies.
But rest assured, in true Moffat fashion, this isn't the final time.
No.
This isn't the final time we've seen Clara. In fact, as Keon said, quote, consequences can be rewritten as long as they're good, unquote. So,
God, I've said this before, and I'm going to say it now, and I'll probably say it again in the future. At the time, I had no idea how prescient I was being.
And in true Moffat fashion, a companion's going to get killed off and then it's going to be retconned in some garbage way.
Man, I really wish you didn't say that because I honestly thought that this was the end of Clara.
Well, rest assured, no time for a retrospective yet. In fact, that's the only reason why I would bring it up right now is because usually we do retrospectives when companions leave.
Well, you know what? I'm just going to say right now that this is a really good way to write Clara out, considering all the stuff with her being doctor-like and this sort of moment of her confronting the doctor about, wanting to get revenge and stuff.
It is actually a really great way to write her out. It's unique as well.
Yeah,
which is difficult to find at this point in Doctor Who.
And it was always difficult, there was Susan,
once you hit
other marriage right after this.
Once you get to Vicky, it's like sweating in your seat. Actually, no, Vicky was alright because she was the first marriage right out. It's after Vicky when it gets...
Susan wasn't marriage, but I guess. Very similar.
I guess. Start sweating in your seat like, oh no.
Every time there was like a potential love interest introduced, you're like, oh god, is this going to be it?
Is this it? Is this the ride out? When Danny Pink was introduced, is this it for Clara?
It was supposed to be.
Again, this is the fourth time that Clara has been written out of the show.
Third. No.
Victorian Clara and Asylum Clara
is the fourth. This is
died.
The fourth, yeah.
Then there's the one in at the end of Death in Heaven, and then there's the one in Last Christmas, and then there's this one.
Yeah, so this is the fourth.
We'll have one.
Fifth actually, if you're counting the other Claras.
Yeah. We'll have one more.
Dang. Really wish this was it.
Me too. Even retrospectively, looking back on it, I wish this was... Especially retrospectively, actually, I wish that this was it, because just in my opinion, there's no way you can kind of top this in emotional impact or impact for the Doctor as a character.
Yeah. I think Clara is a character.
Okay, but she's dead, so you can't go any. There's no more character development beyond dead.
There's nothing past this, but in the moment.
Do you think Missy flew by, picked her up as a Cyberman, uploaded her to
I don't know, man. Look, anything could happen.
When did she stop? When did she stop uploading people?
Yeah, Clara was one of my favorite companions, and I have no idea where they're going from here. I know she's not the main companion next season.
No, we get Bill.
But, yeah.
I love Bill. Bill's great. Clara was great. All of Capaldi's era is great, except some of the episodes in Series 8. And then the Doctor goes back inside, and he's like, you know why she told me not to seek vengeance? And he's like, she was saving you. And he's like, no, she was saving you. With that intense Capaldi glare that he has going on.
But then he gets beamed up to the Liberator.
Well, he gets beamed and we don't know where, and it's to be continued.
Wouldn't that be a kick in Terry Nation's teeth as if they somehow brought Blake 7 back now?
I mean, it'd be what he always wanted. He always wanted the Daleks in Blake 7.
Yeah, but
allegedly,
it wouldn't be him doing it.
Yeah.
That one Blake 7 book writer eventually did it, so...
Well, there's the Caldor City audios that are from the robots of death, but they're set within the Blake 7 universe, so they're technically canon to both if you consider fan audios canon. What is canon? Great thing about Doctor Who is everything's canon. It's just an alternate universe.
Yeah, so then we get the credits, and after the credits, we see that Rigsy has decorated the TARDIS.
Yeah.
Sort of memorialized it there.
The decorations on the TARDIS will reappear.
Didn't Rigsy not live in London last time we saw him? I thought he lived... Wasn't that in, some other city?
Yeah, some random city, yeah. Yeah, it was.
Guess
Maybe he moved.
Yeah.
Been a year. And that's the end.
Yeah, that's all I had. I said all the stuff I wanted to say, closer to the beginning, yeah.
Like I said, I really liked this write out for Clara. It feels as a very natural kind of conclusion to her arc, which is that she becomes more and more reckless and more Doctor-like, and in the end, it ends up killing her. And in many ways, it's a natural evolution for the Doctor's world to realize like how reckless and toxic this relationship had become for the both of them. Kind of reaches its ultimate point there with Clara dying.
Sure. So as for the sonic screwdriver, I only had unknown... Sunglasses, yeah. I only had unknown purpose.
Yeah, I had it for scanning things, both tattoos and the street. And I think I also had an unknown purpose like later on in the episode, but...
Yeah.
Then for my quotes, I got 3. Where Riggsy goes, she enjoyed that too much, and the Doctor's like, tell me about it, it's a recurring problem. Foreshadowing the end of the episode. I have the Doctor is no longer here, you're stuck with me. I have that one as a quote. And then also during that same thing, when the Doctor's talking about how he can basically just do anything, and he's like, I don't care. And Clara's like, you're lying. You always care. Because Clara's like, your reign of terror would end at the sight of the first crying child. The Doctor's like, yeah, that's a good point.
I just had one quote. The Doctor 102, I could still swear it's 102, that never tell anyone your actual plan. That's all I had.
Good one. It's a pretty good one.
Yeah, it's a pretty decent one. It's a pretty okay one.
Why you downgraded the rank of the quote like within that statement?
And do you have any meme things? I didn't.
No. Besides Let Her Go, Moffat bringing up Danny Pink. Although it was like the one time that it was like reasonable to bring him up because she's about to die.
Yeah, that didn't even cross my mind that that was a Let Him Go moment.
The context she brings it up in is like not really a let him go moment, because she says, if Danny Pink can do it, then so can I. And the Doctor's like, what? And she's like, die right.
Yeah, not like in, what was it, Series 3, where it's like they mentioned Rose every 2 words.
Rose. Hey, Martha, have you heard of your predecessor? Her name was Rose. Hey, Martha, look at Rose Garden. Really hope there's some fan art out there that's just a whole bunch of roses standing in a park, and the Doctor's like, hey, look, a rose garden.
Wouldn't even need to be fan art. Could just be like fan photography of a rose garden. With like the Doctor Who logo slapped on.
Doctor Who logo slapped on. Great. Well, I have nothing more to say. 2-part episode next week, and then we're done with the season already. It's just done.
Yeah, I think we were going to mention some people consider this to be a 3-parter with the next 2.
Yeah.
But we didn't do it that way for various reasons, and the wiki doesn't list them that way, I think.
I don't think so. And also just when I watched these, and just looking back on them, I think that they're distinct enough to be considered 2 separate stories. Like, this is kind of the catalyst for the events of next week and the week after, but like, I think that the actual overall plot, it's not like a continuation of the same story in the way that, like Utopia, Sound of Drums, Lost of the Time Lords is. Like, Me doesn't show up again, for example. Or does she? Yeah. And she's not the main villain for the rest of the story kind of thing. I don't know.
For the rest of the show, probably, until the current season.
Just for me, it just feels like very distinct 2 separate stories that are linked but not continuations of the same story.
Yeah.
So anyway, if you'd like to email us, you can reach us at thedoctor@decorative.com. Questions, comments, concerns, and comments, love letters, your thoughts on Face the Raven and Clara's death. Quote, unquote. You can find us on YouTube at Decorative Vegetable. Find us on Apple Podcasts and Google Play at Trust Your Doctor. Be sure to leave a rating if you like the show.
Check us out on Facebook, Trust Your Doctor. Like us on Facebook. Also check us out on Twitter at TYD Podcast and follow us on Twitter. And next time, we're watching Heaven Sent and Hell Bent. But until then, the end.